This wasn't supposed to happen. In November 2023, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT and one of the most powerful artificial intelligence systems ever created, was suddenly fired. There was no warning, no build-up, and no clear explanation that made sense to the public. One moment, he was leading the most important AI company in the world. The next, he was completely removed from it. For a man who had spent years building the future, it ended in a single decision. But what made this situation truly shocking was not just the firing itself. It was what happened immediately after. Within hours, confusion spread across the entire tech industry. Employees inside OpenAI were trying to understand what was going on. Investors were questioning the stability of the company. And partners like Microsoft, who had invested billions of dollars, were suddenly forced into emergency discussions, because this wasn't just another CEO being replaced. This was the leader of the company that had triggered the global AI explosion. The company that had introduced ChatGPT to the world. The company that had forced every major tech giant into a race they couldn't afford to lose, and now, that company was in chaos. To understand how something this extreme could happen, you have to go back to the beginning. Long before ChatGPT, long before the headlines, and long before artificial intelligence became the center of global attention. Back in 2015, AI was still a niche field. Most people had heard of it, but very few understood its true potential. It was seen as experimental, something that belonged in research labs rather than everyday life. But inside Silicon Valley, a small group of people saw something very different. They believed AI wouldn't just become useful. They believed it would become the most powerful technology ever created. More powerful than the internet. More impactful than smartphones. Something that could reshape entire industries and potentially change the balance of global power. One of those people was Sam Altman. Another was Elon Musk. Along with a group of researchers and engineers, they came together to create a company called OpenAI. But this wasn't supposed to be a normal company. The mission was unusual. Instead of maximizing profit, the goal was to ensure that artificial intelligence would benefit all of humanity. The idea was simple in theory, but incredibly difficult in practice. If AI became too powerful and was controlled by a single corporation or government, it could create serious risks, so OpenAI was structured as a non-profit. This decision set it apart from almost every other tech company in Silicon Valley. It attracted people who were not just interested in making money, but in building something meaningful. Something that could shape the future in a responsible way. In the early years, progress was steady but not revolutionary. AI models were improving, but they were still limited. They required huge amounts of data and computing power, and even then, their capabilities were far from what we see today. For a while, it seemed like artificial intelligence might take decades to reach its full potential, but then something changed. A breakthrough in machine learning introduced a new way of building AI systems. This approach, known as transformer models, allowed machines to understand and generate language in a way that felt surprisingly human. It was a turning point. OpenAI began building on this technology, releasing models that gradually improved over time. GPT-2 showed promise. GPT-3 pushed things further. Each version became more capable, more accurate, and more impressive. For the first time, people outside of the tech world began to notice. AI could now write essays, generate code, answer questions, and even hold conversations. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful enough to capture attention. But with that power came a serious challenge. Cost. training these models wasn't just difficult. It was extremely expensive. We're talking about massive data centers, thousands of specialized processors, and energy consumption on a scale that only a few companies in the world could afford. The cost quickly reached billions of dollars. OpenAI, as a non-profit, was not designed to handle that level of spending. Something had to change, so in 2019, they made a decision that would reshape the company. They created a capped profit structure and entered into a partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft invested billions of dollars and provided access to its Azure cloud infrastructure. This gave OpenAI the resources it needed to scale at a level that was previously impossible, but deals like this always come with trade-offs. On the surface, it looked like a perfect partnership. OpenAI got funding and infrastructure. Microsoft got access to cutting-edge AI technology. But behind the scenes, the dynamics were shifting. OpenAI was no longer just a mission-driven research lab. It was now part of a larger ecosystem involving corporate interests, financial expectations, and competitive pressure, and that pressure was about to increase dramatically. In late 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT. What happened next changed everything. Within days, millions of people were using it. Within weeks, it became one of the fastest-growing applications in history. People were using it for writing, coding, research, business, and more. AI was no longer a niche topic. It had entered everyday life. This triggered a chain reaction across the tech industry. Google, which had been a leader in AI for years, suddenly found itself under pressure. Internally, executives recognized the threat. If OpenAI continued to move this fast, it could disrupt Google's core business. A code red situation was declared. Microsoft saw an opportunity. By integrating OpenAI's technology into its products, it could challenge Google in areas where it had struggled before. Search, productivity software, and cloud services were all being reshaped by AI. Meta, Amazon, and other companies also accelerated their efforts. The AI race had officially begun, but inside OpenAI, this success came with consequences. The company was moving faster than ever before. New models were being developed. New features were being released. The pressure to stay ahead was intense. And not everyone agreed with the direction. Some leaders believed speed was essential. If they slowed down, competitors would catch up. Others believed the company was moving too fast. That the risks of advanced AI were not fully understood. That safety should come first, even if it meant losing ground. This created a divide. On one side were those focused on growth, dominance, and scaling the technology as quickly as possible. On the other side were those focused on safety, ethics, and long-term consequences. At first, this tension was manageable. But over time, it grew stronger. Discussions became debates. Debates became disagreements. And disagreements began to turn into something more serious. Behind closed doors, questions were being asked. About leadership. About transparency. About the direction of the company. And then, in November 2023, everything reached a breaking point. The board of OpenAI made a decision that shocked the world. They fired Sam Altman. The announcement was short. It stated that he had not been consistently candid in his communications with the board. But it didn't explain what that meant. It didn't provide details. It didn't give context. For most people, it raised more questions than answers. Inside OpenAI, the reaction was immediate. Employees were confused. Many had no idea this was coming. Some found out through internal messages. Others saw it online. But almost everyone had the same reaction: shock, because this wasn't just a leadership change. This was a sudden removal of the person who had been guiding the company through its most important phase. Within hours, internal communication channels were flooded with questions. What happened? Why now? What does this mean for the future? But there were no clear answers, and that uncertainty quickly turned into concern, because in a company like OpenAI, people are not just working on products. They are working on something they believe is shaping the future. And when leadership becomes unstable, it creates doubt, and doubt spreads fast. At the same time, outside the company, the reaction was just as intense. Investors began to worry. Billions of dollars were at stake. If OpenAI lost its leadership and its talent, it could lose its position in the AI race. Competitors were watching closely. Because moments like this create opportunity, and then, something even more unexpected happened. Microsoft stepped in. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, announced that Sam Altman would be joining Microsoft to lead a new AI research team. This move changed everything, because now, this wasn't just an internal issue at OpenAI. This had become a battle involving one of the largest companies in the world. Inside OpenAI, the pressure reached another level. Employees began organizing, discussions turned into action, and then, a letter was released. Hundreds of employees signed it. The message was clear. If Sam Altman was not brought back, they would leave. This was not a small group. This was the majority of the company, and in a business like AI, talent is everything. Without those engineers, researchers, and developers, OpenAI would not be able to compete. The situation had escalated into a full crisis. Behind the scenes, negotiations intensified. The board faced pressure from every direction: employees, investors, partners, and the public. The decision they had made just days earlier was now threatening the survival of the company, and then, just as quickly as everything fell apart, it changed again. Sam Altman was reinstated as CEO, the board was restructured, new leadership was introduced, and the balance of power shifted. In the end, the person who had been removed came back stronger than before. But this story is not just about one company or one individual. It reveals something much bigger. Artificial intelligence is not just another technology. It is a source of power, and like any source of power, it creates competition, conflict, and uncertainty. The events at OpenAI showed how fragile even the most powerful organizations can be. They showed how quickly things can change, and they highlighted the challenges of managing a technology that is evolving faster than anyone expected. Because the real question is not just what AI can do, it is who controls it. And as we've seen, that control is not always stable. The story of Sam Altman's firing and return is just the beginning, a glimpse into a future where the stakes are even higher, where the conflicts are even more intense, and where the decisions made behind closed doors can shape the world in ways we are only starting to understand. Because the future of AI is not being built in public, it is being decided quietly, in meetings, in negotiations, in moments like this. And next time, it might not be contained within a single company. It could affect everything. If you want to understand power, money, and the people shaping the future, subscribe to Rise and Ruin Empire, because this is just the beginning, and maybe the most important part of this story isn't the firing, or even the comeback, it's what it revealed. Because behind all the headlines, behind the billion-dollar deals, and behind the rapid rise of artificial intelligence, there's a reality most people never see. The future isn't controlled by technology, it's controlled by the people building it. And as we've seen, even those people don't always agree on what should happen next. The same companies promising to build a better future are also competing for power, influence, and control. And when the stakes are this high, Conflict is inevitable, so the real question isn't just what AI will become, it's who will be in charge when it does, because the next time something like this happens, it won't just be about one CEO, it could impact entire industries, economies, even the way we live our everyday lives. And if this story proved anything, it's that everything can change overnight. If you want more deep dives into power, money, and the hidden battles shaping the world, make sure you subscribe, because the next story might be even bigger.